I'm now going to continue my video series on transcription with the following. Unless someone tells you otherwise, stutters and stammers should never be included in a transcription. Let me give you some examples. Let's say somebody is standing there going, the window is very large. Don't include the win just to say, the window is very large. Don't include that extra stutter, because a lot of people have problems with stutters and stammers, and I have some of that myself, so I understand that. And the reason you don't include that in a transcription is because it takes the focus off the transcription. When you're reading it, you just want to skip right over it. And sometimes you might lose the meaning of the text just because there's a stutter or a stammer in there. Okay? This is not, you're not writing a novel here, you're transcribing a video or a piece of audio. Okay. Sometimes a person stammers because that person is trying to remember a particular event or a particular something that he wants to remember or she wants to remember. I'd be sitting there going, when the horse began to run, the jockey tried to chase after him. Delete the first when. Just get rid of it. Okay? Sometimes a person will repeat a particular word to add dramatic emphasis. If this is the case, don't delete the extra word. For example, the tornado was very, very large. It wasn't just very large, it was very, very large. Then you can say, oh man, this thing must have been humongous. That's something you don't want to delete. That isn't a stutter, that isn't a stammer. He's not trying to remember something, he's just trying to see my point. Now, never add a false start to a transcription. Let me give you an example. He was trying to perform, he was trying to play a song using a piano. You would just say, he was trying to play a song using a piano. You would not try to write down he was trying to perform, because what he was doing originally, he was trying to make one statement. He got to thinking, you know what, maybe that's not the best way to say what I'm trying to say. So you shouldn't include that. Okay? How do you transcribe interrupted speech? Okay, did you hear that stutter, that actually stammer there a minute ago? Well, you should have deleted that if you were trying to transcribe this video. And see, I had another one, you need to delete that too. Okay? But you're not trying to transcribe this video. See what I'm talking about? You should delete all those stutters and stammers. Okay. All right. How do you transcribe interrupted speech? First, I must define interrupted speech. Let me give you an example of this. Creating arcs using parametric functions in scalable vector graphics, and then you have a second guy say, what'd you just say? And then you say, sometimes, okay, never mind. What it is that a second speaker might interrupt the first speaker by saying, hey man, would you like to explain this in plain English, because I don't comprehend anything you're saying. So that's what I'm talking about, interrupted speech. And in some transcription services you want to put a single dash to indicate this was interrupted speech. Others will require you to put a double. It's not really a dash, it's more like a hyphen. Okay, you're either going to have one hyphen or two to indicate that speech was interrupted. So if you were doing, and I'll show you this, if you were doing a transcription like this, I know this will make this video a little bit longer, but I think you'll appreciate it. So let's say you were doing let's say you were doing this. Try to hold this up as best as I can. I know this is going to be kind of hard here. Let's say you were saying creating arcs using parametric functions. What you'd want to do is you'd want to put a double dash there indicating that this particular speech was interrupted. Okay? Now, some transcription services say use a single hyphen. Some say use two. So, when you're signing up for a transcription service, check out through their instructions whether they want a single hyphen, a double hyphen, or maybe even something else to indicate interrupted speech. Alright, let's continue on. What is a filler word? Well, let me give you a few examples. Sometimes a person will utter the word or to indicate they are trying to remember something. In this case, the words or okay, it'd be like or get rid of the and the Don't have them in your transcription. That's very distracting. Sometimes a person will use phrases like to indicate they comprehend what the speaker is saying. Well, you don't want to include that in your transcription. That's just acknowledging they understand or they comprehend what the speaker is saying. Okay? So don't include or okay? So if they're using they're probably thinking about what the speaker is saying rather than they're actually replying, alright? Now, I'll tell you some other words that you should never include in a transcription. Okay? There are certain times you want to use the word like. But if you're starting to use it like 80s slang, and you know what I'm talking about if you came from the 80s, okay? Yes, I came from the 70s, so I lived through the 80s, and there were a lot of people who go, like totally. You don't include the like totally. That doesn't add anything to the transcription at all. That just makes you sound like that you are from the 80s, and people are like, I don't want somebody from the 80s, really? Unless the word like adds some kind of a meaning to the transcription, delete it. Okay? Or how about this? When you turn off your clothes dryers, let me try that again. When you turn off your clothes dryer, you know, it takes a few seconds for the drum to stop spinning. You don't want to include that you know, because you are not asking the other speaker directly if he knows what you're talking about. You're just using it as some 80s phrase. Delete that dang thing. You hear you know way too much in conversation. Delete it. Or, you know, right? That's another 80s slang. You would delete not only you know, but you would delete right. Because unless you're asking somebody specifically if they truly comprehend what you're trying to say, well, then it's just nothing more than slang. Okay? Well, kind of, or sort of. If they're just using it as a whiny little thing, don't include kind of or sort of. Okay? You have to look to see if it's adding, you know, it would be like if you're saying, it was sort of large. That's okay, because you're indicating that it was a little large. It wasn't like super humongous. But when you're just saying, well, kind of, that's a whiny thing. Don't include whiny things. Okay? Alrighty. Now, it can be tough to edit something like this, mainly because you may not be entirely sure if the kind of or sort of actually adds meaning to the text or not. So you're going to have to really think about whether those particular phrases actually add meaning to the text or not. Alright. I will tell you more in a future video concerning transcription. And so in the meantime, take my tips, master them, and then I'll see you in the next video. Alright, I would like for you to stay tuned.